Hi, and welcome to another video lecture for Mr. Mosher's 8th grade U.S. History class. This is a second part of a two-part series looking at the Progressive Era, the Reformers, great movements of change between 1890 and 1920. The Progressive Era, which sought to return the government to the people, to restore economic opportunities, and try to correct certain injustices found in American life. The textbook readings for this particular lecture series comes to us from these chapters and sections. Reforming the Workplace, pages 673, The Rights of Women and Minorities, 675 to 679, and The Progressive President, 680 to 683. This particular lecture video, these will be our guiding questions. What problems developed for African Americans after the Civil War and Reconstruction? What were the stated goals of the NAACP? Why was Alice Paul and other women upset during this era? And what did the 19th Amendment accomplish? So these will be our guiding questions. Last time, we talked about Theodore Roosevelt, the great trust-busting president who broke up monopolies and trusts to try and restore competition back into the marketplace. We talked about Mother Jones, worried about rights of workers, specifically kids who are being exploited in many of these factories. And then John Muir, who was this environmentalist, worried about the destruction of the environment, wanted to set aside national parks to kind of protect those environments. Today, we're going to talk about W.E.B. Du Bois, Upton Sinclair, and Alice Paul. So let's start here first with W.E.B. Du Bois. In the late 1800s, this is right after the era of the Civil War and Reconstruction. So you have to remember that there are still people still living during this era that had fought during the Civil War. They've gotten older, they're not getting to become that grandparent age, but there are people that were alive still that remembered the Civil War. And there are a lot of hope coming out of the Civil War that racial tensions would maybe find a way to resolve themselves. But it didn't. Things really got, as things improved, some things got maybe a little bit worse. So racism and discrimination is still really much a national problem. We have a segregational system set up, separate facilities for whites and blacks. So separate schools for white students versus African American students, separate train cars for African Americans, parks for only whites only. So we have this segregation beginning to take a hold here in the late 1800s. In some places in the South, even though the 15th Amendment was passed during Reconstruction, they gave African American men the right to vote. Many southern states got around that by passing literacy tests, a test where people had to pass to show that they could read or write. They were really rigged. Poll taxes, where you had to pay a tax in order to vote. And most of these were very effective in keeping African Americans out of the ballot box from being able to vote. So even though legally African American men could vote, in a lot of places in the South it wasn't really a practicality. They were kind of denied that right to vote. In the North, many African Americans began moving out of the South into the North to find jobs in factories during the Industrial Revolution. But they're facing discrimination in the North as well. There are certain laws in place that say African Americans can't live in certain neighborhoods. There's some segregation that takes place in some of these northern cities. And another big growing problem was the number of lynchings that began to occur during our history during this time period after the Reconstruction era. And this was really a national problem. This wasn't just occurring in the old Confederacy, the deep South of places like Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia. But this was also occurring in northern states as well, as racial tensions and racial riots were breaking out. W.E.B. Du Bois thought this was wrong, and many others did as well. They met in Niagara to kind of hash out a plan, and they ended up creating what's called the NAACP, which stands for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And this organization's stated purpose and goal was to work for equal rights for African Americans, so try and combat these racial discriminations and problems that were taking place during this time period. It was not overly successful early on, but it does lay the foundations for the civil rights movement that will be coming after World War II. So even though this will be founded in the early 1900s, they will have some small, minimal successes. It really won't be until after World War II in 1947 and the 1950s and 1960s as we get into the civil rights movement where the NAACP will really start gaining some great traction and begin changing some of these practices and laws. Again, the biggest problem of this era was racial discrimination, and it was also including in the North, where we're from, in Omaha, the story of Will Brown, which was a lynching that took place in 1919. And so we watched this video in class and talked about this in class as well. So make sure you do come talk to me and see the video about this particular riot that breaks out, which was beginning to occur in northern cities too. So Chicago, St. Louis, were having race riots as well. So there's this racial tensions just kind of building up in this time period. And W.E.B. Du Bois was very frustrated and concerned by this and was trying to push forward greater action to try to fight against racism and discrimination. Alice Paul, like a lot of women, were very concerned and upset with the fact that women still could not vote, even though we have been a country for well over 100 years, almost 200 years by this point in time, that women can't vote. And this isn't right. This isn't fair. Women are half of our population, and they don't have a say in our democracy. And so women were really pushing for and protesting for greater equality in the right to vote. Women like Alice Paul protest daily in front of Washington, holding banners. Alice Paul even goes on a hunger strike. She refuses to eat, which ends up being her forced to get arrested and put into an asylum where they try to force feed her and force her to eat. And through these actions of Alice Paul and other women, they eventually are able to push Congress to pass the 19th Amendment, which basically gave women the constitutional right to vote. So Alice Paul and these women become known as suffragettes. The suffrage movement, which tries to bring about the right to women to vote. In class, we watched this video on the parody song of Lady Gaga, Bad Romance, about women's suffrage. So again, if you haven't seen the video, please make sure you check for that video. The last person that we're going to look at here is Upton Sinclair. Upton Sinclair was really worried about working conditions for workers. And he's really concerned about the meatpacking industry, especially in places like Chicago, which is one of the largest meatpacking plant areas in the country. And he actually goes undercover and goes and tries to learn about some of these unsafe working practices and writes a book called The Jungle. Now, Upton Sinclair's original intent of The Jungle was to illustrate the exploitation of the workers, how they are overworked, underpaid, working in very dangerous conditions. But the book kind of misses the mark on that end, because what the book does describe are some pretty disgusting and gross practices of some dangerous things getting into our food. And so Upton Sinclair will later comment that I aimed for America's heart, but instead I found its stomach. People were sickened by what they read in The Jungle. There were some pretty disgusting things falling into the food, rancid old food that was being recycled and being reused by these meatpacking plants. And out of this outrage, Congress will pass two important pieces of legislation to begin regulating the food industry and the drug industry. The first one was the Meat Inspection Act, and this was passed pretty much directly as a result of The Jungle. There was congressional hearings to look at these practices. They did their own investigations, and they found out that what was in The Jungle, what Sinclair wrote about, was factual and was true. And so they passed the Meat Inspection Act, which requires the government to go in and inspect food and meat to make sure that it is of quality, it's not from diseased animals, it's not rancid and spoiled before it goes out to consumption. And then the second piece of legislation that came out of their additional investigation was something called the Pure Food and Drug Act. And again, these acts were to regulate the safety of food and drugs. It wasn't to necessarily make sure that they were 100% perfect. There are going to be some impurities that come into food and some impurities that go into drugs, but we want to make them as safe as possible and pure of what the labels say they are as possible. So when we think about The Jungle here, it was a pretty important novel that came with it here. So this book, The Jungle, really is going to open up a lot of eyes about the problems in this industry. And so we'll be reading about The Jungle in class. We're going to actually read a part of the book to see some of the more disgusting pieces that are mentioned in the book about some of those unsafe things that were coming into people's food, and it's kind of gross, so it's really gross. But that's the impact that The Jungle had, basically, on food regulations. And today, we still have food regulations. It's a lasting legacy. We have regulations over things that can go into our food. And we think about like a slice of pizza, it is regulated. Ground beef can have more than 30% fat. That's according to regulations. Mozzarella must be at least 30%, but no more than 45% fat. And it has to come from pasteurized cow milk. Pepperoni, 18 to 21% of the protein has to be required, right? The tomato sauce must be the reddish variety with at least 25% of natural tomato soluble solids, right? Everything that goes on the pizza, there are now laws and regulations to make sure that the food that's going into that is safe for consumption for people. It's not going to be dangerous for people. It's going to be healthy. So these are the 6 reformers that had some huge impacts during the Progressive Era. Theodore Roosevelt, breaking up monopolies and trusts to try and restore competition to the business economy. Mother Jones, fighting for workers' rights, trying to outlaw child labor and the exploitation of kids working in factories. John Muir, trying to protect the environment from over logging and pollution caused from mining. W.E. Du Bois, fighting for better equality for African Americans and equal rights. Upton Sinclair, concerned about workers, but again, his consequences are going to focus a lot on food safety, brought on by the Meat Inspection Act and the Pure Food and Drug Act that was spurred on by his book, The Jungle. And then, of course, we have Alice Paul, who will help fight and bring about the 19th Amendment to help bring about women's right to vote. So thank you for listening. As always, if you have questions, please make sure you come talk to me. Have a good day.